In the pounding late afternoon rain in Cleveland, Elliot Mercer, CEO of a massive energy company, lay sprawled between torn trash bags, expensive suits soaked through, face bruised, and one cruel detail in the scene. A man worth billions was lying there like just another thing thrown away. A few inches from him, Chloe Parker, a street outreach social worker, knelt in the mud with her uniform plastered to her skin. She cupped his face in both hands, fingers searching for a pulse at his neck, while water streamed down her tied-back hair and over the mix of blood and oil. The wind pushed the smell of rust and burned plastic across the junk piles, and all around them there was only the sound of rain hammering metal and heaps of trash. The gold watch on Elliot's wrist still glimmered faintly, like it was mocking the place that had become his graveyard. And when Chloe leaned in, bringing her ear close to his mouth, something almost impossible happened. A sound, a name, one last shred of consciousness that changed everything. Tell me something. Where are you watching from right now? City, state, country? The sun was already sinking, throwing a dirty orange light over an abandoned scrapyard on the outskirts of Cleveland, where everything seemed to creak. Chains, loose sheets of metal, signs clanging in the wind. Chloe Parker, a 27-year-old social worker, walked between mountains of junk with a flashlight in her hand and a knot in her stomach. She was looking for Noah, a 12-year-old runaway from the shelter who had vanished that morning. Out in a place like this, every extra minute could turn into danger. Chloe called his name in a low voice, not daring to shout because the silence out there wasn't peaceful. It was listening. The beam of her flashlight swept past shredded tires, burst black trash bags, cracked crates, until it stopped on something that didn't fit. Between spilled oil and wet garbage lay a man on his side, wearing a ripped expensive suit, tie stained with blood, face scraped raw like he'd been dragged. He wasn't homeless. This was someone who did not belong here. She moved closer, nose full of rust and gasoline, and pressed 2 fingers to his neck with a shaking hand. Pulse, weak, but there. Oh my God. Slipped out, more to herself than to anyone else. Chloe looked around, praying for headlights, footsteps, any sign she wasn't alone, and saw nothing. Only that awful feeling that someone had dumped this man here on purpose, like leaving broken furniture at the curb. Alone, she grabbed his coat and started pulling, stumbling in the muck, her arm burning from the effort, her heart pounding in her ears. When she finally managed to drag him to the car, she fumbled for her phone with the other hand and called Marjorie, her aunt, a retired nurse. Her voice came out in a rushed whisper. "Auntie, I'm coming with someone badly hurt. Don't ask yet, just open the door." And only when the stranger was stretched out on the old couch in that small living room breathing raggedly did he let a rough, almost airless sound escape. A girl's name, and Chloe and Marjorie exchanged a look that said this wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of a story that could put both of them in danger. Marjorie Parker's house smelled like strong tea and hospital ointment. Nothing in that small space matched the body on the couch. Well-kept hands, a deep gash on his forehead, bruises along his neck like someone had squeezed with rage. Chloe, the social worker who pulled him out of the scrapyard, was cleaning the dried blood, carefully trying not to think too hard about the question pounding in her chest. Who dumps a man like this in the trash? And why? When he opened his eyes, it was like waking up inside a life that didn't belong to him. His gaze was unfocused, breathing short, hand roaming over his own chest like he was searching for a name carved somewhere under his ribs. "Where am I?" he croaked, voice raw. Chloe tried to be gentle. "You're safe. I found you hurt." He tried to sit up and failed, confused and furious at his own body. "My name." "I don't." The sentence died halfway, like his memory ran into a locked door. Chloe realized that without a name, he didn't even have solid ground. So she improvised, studying his face. Too sharp, too serious to be just some random stranger, and said, "I'm going to call you Jack for now, okay? Just until it comes back." He blinked, like the idea humiliated him and helped him at the same time. Marjorie, endlessly practical, adjusted the blanket and grunted. Jack or not, you're going to lie still and let that wound close. And if this story already grabbed you, hit subscribe and stay close. Because sometimes good people get dragged into trouble they never asked for. And that's where the biggest reversals are born. That same night, while rain tapped softly against the window, Jack started talking in his sleep. Not full sentences, fragments. His hand clenched in the air, like he was holding something that wasn't there. "Mia," he whispered, in a way so painful it made Chloe go cold. He woke up startled, eyes damp without understanding why, and all he could repeat was, I need her." Chloe felt her chest tighten, because it didn't sound like a random dream. It sounded like a memory fighting to come back. And that's when she heard it outside. A car rolling to a slow, deliberate stop on the street, and the soft thud of a door closing like someone had just arrived looking for exactly what was inside that house. 2 days passed, and on the surface, the house looked normal again. Marjorie's tea, Chloe's coming and going, the couch serving as a makeshift bed. But Jack, the man with no memory, didn't really rest. He spent long stretches staring at the wall, like he was waiting for something to appear. Sometimes he dug his fingers into his temples, frustrated, and muttered, "It's there? I just can't grab it." And the silence that followed was thick. That late afternoon, Chloe was out on the porch when she saw it. A black sedan creeping to a stop across the street, sitting their way, too long to be coincidence. 2 men stayed inside, sunglasses on even without sun, watching the house like they were checking off an address. Chloe's skin prickled. This wasn't curious neighbors. It was a search. She hurried back in, shut the door quietly, and said low to Marjorie, "There's somebody outside, and they don't look like good news." Jack heard her and lifted his head immediately, as if his body recognized danger before his mind did. The street went quiet for a few seconds, until another car drove by and laid on the horn, impatient. The sound exploded in the living room like a gunshot. Jack froze. Color drained from his face, his chest heaved, and his hand flew to his throat like he couldn't breathe. "No, no," he repeated, staring into nothing. And then the flashes came. A boardroom too bright, a polished conference table, a pen shoved into his hand, and a man's cold voice snapping, "Sign it already. You're holding everyone up." In the broken memory, the man's face appeared in pieces, but the name punched through whole. Trent Holloway. Jack staggered back, nearly losing his balance, and the memory sharpened one more notch. A metallic taste in his mouth, bitterness mixed into wine, then darkness, then the sway of a trunk, and the thud of his body being dumped like trash. Chloe grabbed his arm and held on, eyes glassy, but voice steady. "You're not alone, okay? Whoever you are, I'm staying with you until we understand what they did." Outside, the black sedan was still parked, and the next time Chloe peeked through the curtain, one of the men had a phone to his ear, like he was confirming, "It's him." On the morning of the 3rd day, Chloe Parker came back from the corner store with grocery bags in one hand and a crumpled newspaper in the other. She rarely bought papers, but the headline was too big to ignore. The pages were damp from the night air, black letters screaming, "Executive vanishes after meeting. Family offers reward." Chloe stepped into the kitchen, dropped the bags on the table, and stared at the front page for a few seconds, almost afraid to read it aloud. Marjorie adjusted her glasses and carefully tugged the paper from her niece's fingers. On the couch, Jack, still covered in bandages and stitches, tried to pretend he wasn't interested. But his eyes went straight to the photo. His breath caught halfway. In the picture, there he was, groomed, event-ready, perfect suit, with a little girl clutching his hand and another man hugging him a little too tightly, wearing a victory smile. Beneath the photo, the name cut like a knife. Elliot Mercer, CEO of Mercer Gritworks. Jack blinked fast, as if his brain was trying to refuse the information. "Elliot," he repeated under his breath, and the whole room seemed to shrink. The little girl's name was printed there too, Mia Mercer. And it was like someone yanked open a drawer full of memories all at once. Her laughter echoing across a huge hallway, the smell of her hair after a bath, her small hand wrapped around his finger, asking, "Promise he'll be home early?" Chloe watched his face harden and knew this wasn't just memory returning. This was pain coming back with it. Then the ugly part snapped into place. Elliot shut his eyes, jaw clenched, and the flashes turned into a full scene. A glass of wine at a private celebration, the taste shifting suddenly, the world spinning. And Trent Holloway, his business partner, smiling with eyes that never warmed. Then a woman's voice, nervous and obedient, saying, "I'm doing what you told me." A face slid into focus for the first time. Sienna Price, his trusted assistant, holding keys, avoiding his gaze as he could barely stand. Elliot's eyes flew open, and he whispered, like admitting the worst thing, "They drugged me and threw me away." Chloe's stomach turned. And if that twist hit you in the gut too, tell me later in the comments. What shook you more, the partner's betrayal or the way they treated a human being like trash? Elliot crushed the newspaper in his fist, hand shaking not from fear, but from contained rage. "My daughter," he said, locking eyes with Chloe, as if begging and demanding at the same time. Chloe drew in a deep breath. "Then we're going to get Mia, but we're going to do it right." Just as Marjorie stepped toward the sink to grab some water, she pressed a hand to her chest for a second. A small, almost hidden gesture, and Chloe saw it and felt time suddenly shrink. Marjorie Parker's house had turned into a makeshift command center. Pills lined up on the counter, a towel set aside, gauze folded with stubborn precision. Chloe, dark circles under her eyes, was still trying to keep a routine, but inside, she never switched off. Elliot Mercer, the missing executive she'd called Jack for days, paced slowly through the living room, like each step was putting another piece of him back in place. And even so, there was a new fear hanging over everything. If they'd found him once, they could find him again. One ordinary afternoon, the kind that looks like just another day, the air shifted. Marjorie was talking about his bandage, trying to sound casual, when her voice faltered mid-sentence. Her hand went to her chest, her gaze drifted for a heartbeat, and her knee buckled. Chloe lunged forward, catching her around the waist. "Auntie, hey, look at me." Marjorie tried to take a deep breath, tried to play it off as just tired, but the cold sweat on her forehead gave her away. Elliot took 2 long strides, suddenly right beside them, face hardening with the experience of someone who recognized an emergency without needing to be told. In the car, the world closed in. Chloe drove with white-knuckled hands on the wheel, whispering, hold on," like the words themselves were medicine. Elliot sat in the back, gripping Marjorie's hand gently, murmuring by her ear, "Breathe with me." One at a time. Somewhere in the distance, an ambulance siren wailed, and for a second, Chloe thought life was cruel, even in the small things. When you need help the most, the sound passes and keeps going. At the EA, they walked into a lobby packed with people. Harsh lights, the sting of disinfectant, exhausted faces fighting for attention. And then came the blow she didn't expect in that moment. Forms, costs, impatient looks. A clerk asked about insurance, about payment, about how this is going to be handled. Chloe tried to explain, to negotiate, to appeal to basic humanity, and crashed into the coldest wall of all. A system that wanted money before mercy. Her voice thinned. "She's my aunt. She needs to be seen now." The fear curdled into anger when she realized that even here, in the panic, there was a price tag before compassion. Elliot pulled her aside, rolled up his sleeve, and showed his bare wrist first. The watch he'd been found wearing was gone. In his other hand, he held the case of that same luxury watch, like it was the last surviving piece of a life someone had tried to erase. Without making a speech, without drama, he simply said, "This covers it." And quickly, Chloe's eyes went wide. "You don't have to. You just got yourself back." Elliot stared through the glass where Marjorie was being rushed inside and answered quietly, almost ashamed of the truth. "I spent years thinking my worth was on my wrist. Today, the only thing I can't afford to lose is in there." He handed over the watch like he was surrendering a symbol, not of wealth, but of choice. When the doctor finally came out with better news, Chloe let out a short sob that burst free on its own. Elliot stood still, breathing slowly. Marjorie, still weak, squeezed both their hands and tried to joke, "Look at you two," acting like a family. Chloe was about to answer and swallowed the words. Because deep down, that's what it was. And in that hallway's cold light, Elliot understood something simple and terrifying. He could get his company back, his name, his mention. But if he didn't get Mia back, none of it mattered. In his pocket, as the watch case clicked shut one last time, another memory surfaced, burning its way into focus. There was someone from his past he could still call. Someone who knew exactly how to bring Trent Holloway down. If Elliot had the courage to go back. Later that night, with Marjorie sleeping under sedation and the house finally quiet, Elliot Mercer sat at the kitchen table, staring at his faint reflection in the dark window glass. His hand still shook, not from weakness, but from holding everything in. Chloe set a mug of coffee beside him and stayed silent for a few seconds, respecting the weight of what he was about to do. Elliot took the old phone Chloe had lent him, drew a deep breath, and said, "I've got one call that can change this." He dialed Adrian Vega, the attorney who knew every seam in the Mercer empire, not just contracts, but secrets, alliances, and fractures. When the call connected, Elliot spoke low and direct. "Adrian, it's me." The silence on the other end stretched so long Chloe thought it had dropped. Then Adrian's voice came back, shocked and hoarse. "That's not possible. I watched them put your memorial together." Elliot's jaw tightened. "Then listen to me. I'm alive. I know who did it. I need you to bring the police at the right moment and tell me where Mia is." Adrian didn't ask why. He just said, "Give me an hour. And Elliot, don't walk in there alone." The plan wasn't heroic. It was careful. Elliot showered, put on plain borrowed clothes, but his posture was no longer that of a man lost on a couch. It was someone who remembered who he was. Chloe insisted on going, fear written all over her face. "If you go in there and anything goes wrong, you die again, for real this time." Elliot looked at her for a long second, gratitude shining in his eyes like a confession. "I won't put you in danger." Chloe's answer was simple. "Then don't shut me out." From the bedroom door, Marjorie's voice came out rough but clear. "Come back in one piece." The Mercer mansion blazed with light, like a storefront. Luxury cars, music turned low enough not to feel like joy. Glasses sparkling, people rushing to be seen. A huge banner by the entrance carried the words, "In memory of Elliot Mercer," and the irony made Chloe's stomach twist. Trent Holloway, the ex-partner, held court at the center of it all, handing out hugs and polished speeches, like a man burying a friend while crowning himself king. Beside him, Sienna Price, the former assistant, moved with a tight smile, the look of someone who knew the ice under her feet was thin. Elliot walked in without fanfare. There was no shouting, no spectacle, only his presence slicing through the party like a blade. The music seemed to drop a notch on its own. A waiter saw him first and almost dropped his tray. A woman by the stairs clapped a hand over her mouth. A whisper swelled into a wave. "It's him. Oh my God, he's alive." Trent froze, champagne flute suspended midair, his smile draining away. For a heartbeat, he tried to recover. "What is this? Some kind of sick joke?" Elliot got close enough to speak in a voice only Trent would hear. "You left me in the trash. I just came back from the place you thought would keep me quiet." Trent moved to flip the script the way manipulators do. "Security," he barked, pointing like Elliot was the intruder. But before anyone could grab him, Adrian Vega stepped forward with 2 officers and a detective, his posture making it clear this wasn't theater. Adrian lifted a thick folder and said firmly, "Mr. Holloway, we have records of financial movements, forged signatures, security footage, messages, and a murder attempt." Elliot didn't smile. He just stared Trent down with a calm that was scarier than rage. Trent tried to back away and bumped straight into his own lies. Sienna started crying before anyone even questioned her. She stumbled toward Elliot with both hands raised like she was surrendering. "I didn't want to. I swear, I didn't want to." He said he'd ruined me, that he'd... Her voice broke. Chloe saw the strange mix on her face. Real guilt wrapped around old fear. Elliot stood still and listened. When Sienna finally begged, almost without air, "Please, forgive me," he answered without anger and without affection, just truth. "From now on, your life is on you." That was it. No dramatic revenge, just consequence. But Elliot wasn't there for Trent. His eyes scanned the room once and locked on the staircase. "Where's Mia?" The question came out low, dangerous. Handcuffed, Trent tried one last cruel stab. "She doesn't want to see you." Elliot lunged. The officers held him back, and Adrian cut in. "We already know where she is." They went upstairs. A long hallway, too quiet for a house full of guests. At the end, a locked door. Elliot laid his palm on the wood, like he was afraid of hurting whoever was behind it. "Mia, it's me. Open up." On the other side, a choked sob, a stifled sniffle, then the clink of a lock turning. The door opened a crack, and a little girl appeared with swollen eyes, clutching a stuffed bear like a shield. She looked at him like people look at a ghost that's too kind to be real. You left me." Elliot sank to his knees so they were eye to eye, and his voice came out raw with no armor. "I never wanted to leave. They took me away from you." Mia took a small step, hesitated, then threw herself into his arms with a force full of anger and love all tangled together. Elliot shut his eyes and hugged her as if the whole world was trying to rip her away again. "I'm here. I promise. I'm here." From the doorway, Chloe watched, chest aching like the moment belonged to her too. She saw one detail that changed everything. Elliot hadn't just come back to life, he'd come back different. And now that Mia was in his arms, his first move wasn't to celebrate. It was to decide what would remain of the man he used to be. With Mia's small hand wrapped around his arm, Elliot Mercer walked down the mansion stairs like he was crossing a minefield without looking away. The party had turned into a silent stage. Glasses paused mid-air, people pretending not to stare, whispers trying to hide behind thin smiles. Officers led Trent Holloway out, and the click of the handcuffs was the only honest music left. Chloe stayed one step behind, alert, still half expecting someone to drag Elliot back into the dark. In the study, all polished wood and carefully chosen art meant to scream power. Elliot sat with Adrian Vega, still holding his daughter. He didn't want Mia out of arm's reach for even a second. Adrian talked about shares, the board, control, and press pressure. Elliot listened, but his gaze kept drifting to his little girl's face, like he was memorizing every feature he'd almost lost. "I can come back and pretend nothing happened. Or I can come back and tear down the way this whole thing works," he said, more to himself than to them. His first decision wasn't glamorous. Elliot ordered suspicious contracts frozen, transfers halted, a full audit launched. In the middle of all the cold legal words, he said one simple sentence that shifted the air in the room. "If my company moves energy, then it can move people out of the dark, too." Chloe's head snapped up. Elliot turned to her, serious. "You didn't just pull me out of a junkyard. You kept me from becoming one of them." Right there, without ceremony, he offered Chloe a real role at Mercer Gridworks. Not a token position, but a seat as a social advisor. Someone whose job was to make sure the company never forgot there were lives outside its gates. Mia studied Chloe with wary eyes at first. Then curiosity started to win. When Chloe knelt down and said gently, "I'm not your mom, okay? But I promise I won't disappear when things get hard." Mia didn't answer with words. She just held her teddy bear out for a second, like she was handing over a small piece of trust. Elliot saw it and swallowed hard. Later that same day, they brought Marjorie Parker to the mansion as soon as she was stable enough to leave the hospital. When Elliot took her hand and said, "You kept me alive when nobody else cared if I was breathing," Marjorie only replied, "I did what any real family would do." The silence afterward was heavy with meaning, because nobody in that room needed to pretend anymore. All through this fresh start, one thing became clear to Elliot. His old life hadn't just left wounds, it had patterns. Looking at Chloe across the room, tired, steady, painfully human, he realized that what he felt wasn't ordinary gratitude. It was a terrifying desire, not to imagine a single day without her there. The problem was, while he was still trying to find the courage to say it out loud, Mia was already reading his heart better than he could. And with the sharp instinct of a child who grew up too fast, she seemed more than ready to push her dad toward a step he hadn't quite admitted he wanted to take. By the time the last patrol car left and the mansion's noise finally died down, the air still hummed with leftover tension. After wrapping up the essentials with Adrian Vega and making sure Trent Holloway was far enough away to never touch anything again, Elliot asked for a break. He didn't want to stay in the mansion. He didn't want to be trapped inside those expensive walls. He got in the car with Chloe and Mia. No reporters, no security detail, like a man who needed to remember what it felt like to be just a father with real people beside him. He drove out toward the scrapyard where it had all started. The place didn't look the same anymore, because Elliot wasn't the same anymore. City lights flickered in the distance, and close by the wind carried the smell of damp earth and old metal. "Why here?" Chloe asked, puzzled. Elliot parked, stepped out first, and opened Mia's door. She held onto his hand like an anchor. "Because I need to look at this place without feeling like it still owns me," he answered quietly. Then he turned to Chloe. "And because this is where you made a choice, the one no one else would have made." They walked a little way, and Elliot pointed to an adjacent lot, cleared, fenced, with construction stakes in the ground. It wasn't a finished park. It was a visible beginning. Leveled dirt, saplings lined up, chalk markings, and a simple sign about a new public space coming soon. Chloe froze, trying to process. Elliot spoke like he was revealing a decision forged while his soul was still shaking. "I bought this land today, not to build another tower with my name on it. To build a park. A place that doesn't swallow people and doesn't hide kids." Mia let go of his hand for a moment and ran a few steps forward, as if she could already see a future there that didn't hurt. She glanced back at Chloe with a small, knowing smile, like she was silently saying, "Go on." Elliot took a breath, pulled a small, plain box from his pocket. Nothing flashy. His hand trembled in a way no billion-dollar meeting had ever managed to provoke. He turned to Chloe and stood there for a few seconds. Words stuck, because when they're real, they weigh more than numbers. "I spent my whole life thinking control was everything, and you showed me courage is something else entirely." He opened the box, and with his voice cracking, said it the most straightforward way he knew, without wrapping it in complicated speeches. "You pulled me out of the dark. I don't want to wake up another day without you nearby. Not as the woman who saved me, but as family. Will you marry me?" Chloe's hand flew to her mouth, eyes filling instantly. She half laughed, half cried, not knowing where to put that much feeling. "Elliot, are you serious?" He nodded, and Mia, behind him, nearly burst with a whispered, "Say yes." Chloe answered with a nod first, because her voice took a second to catch up. "Yes. Yes." Elliot slid the ring onto her finger carefully, like he was touching something fragile and priceless, then pulled her into a hug with no rush in it. Mia squeezed between them, wrapping her arms around both, like she was trying to glue that moment to her skin so she'd never feel alone again. Standing there on that still rough ground, wind stinging their faces and distant lights blinking, Elliot whispered something that sounded like a prayer he'd never known how to say. "I thought I'd lost everything, but I was just being pushed toward what really matters." Later that night, when the patrol cars, guests, and noise finally faded, the mansion felt too big to contain what had happened. Elliot Mercer sat on the staircase with Mia curled up against his chest, feeling the warm weight of her, each breath a living proof that he was still here. Across the room, Chloe watched in silence, hands still smelling faintly of rain, and Scrapyard, thinking about how one small choice, not looking away, had changed the future of 3 lives. Elliot glanced at his bare wrist, remembering the watch he'd handed over without a second thought, and realized that had been the first honest choice he'd made in a long time. His company hadn't saved him. His money hadn't. People had. Courage had. A retired nurse who opened her door without interrogation, and a social worker who saw a man where the world only saw trash. When he reached across the space to take Chloe's hand, and Mia rested her head on Chloe's shoulder, like she recognized safety, the justice that mattered most wasn't just seeing a traitor in cuffs. It was seeing the family forming in a place no one would have predicted. "Now tell me, what would you have done in Chloe's place? Alone in that junkyard? not knowing who that man was. And which moment hit you hardest? The betrayal, the reunion with Mia, or the quiet sacrifice of that watch? If you want, share it in the comments. I really do read what you write. If this story moved you, tap like so I know it was worth bringing it to you. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Sometimes life changes with one simple gesture. And sometimes the person who pulls you back doesn't have any idea how big that rescue really was.